Peace and blessings to you. This is Brother Heathel from the Griot's Corner. Usually I would be doing a Back to Black classic film review or doing some type of spoken word or sharing some type of poetry of uplift. I want to just have a dialogue with those of you who will tune in today to hear and listen. There is a video on Instagram. I've seen it on Instagram and maybe on Facebook as well, but I know I have seen it on Instagram a few times. It's of a beautiful little Black girl who's getting her hair braided. And I think it's either her mother or an aunt or an older cousin. And the little Black girl looks up at her and says, "I'm ugly." Immediately, the mother or the aunt stops and says, "Oh, no, 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 baby. You're not ugly, you're beautiful." And then she begins to accentuate her beautiful dimples and her beautiful chocolate skin. And while she turns the girl to her and she starts telling her that she's not ugly, she's beautiful, the little girl breaks down and cries. And I'm watching her cry, I'm watching her break down. And though I was never a little girl, I do remember being that little boy, that little Black boy who didn't feel he was handsome enough, didn't feel he was cute. That's what girls used to, when I was growing up, the girls used to use the terminology, "Oh, he's cute," or "he's fine." I didn't hear that a lot. Heard it some, but I didn't hear it enough for me. And I know what it's like to internalize a negative self-perception of yourself to the degree that you will accentuate the negative about yourself or the negative that you perceive about yourself. The reason that I do Back to Black classic film review, or I started doing it, and the reason that I even wrote my book, Everybody's Got a Little Light Under the Sun, is because as a Black boy who grew up in the 70s, and I know with all the controversy surrounding Bill Cosby, I saw myself when I looked at the Fat Albert Show. I saw myself when Soul Train would air and there would be some artists. Didn't matter if I liked the artist or not, I was seeing myself reflected on screen. It was important to try to find any image of positive affirmation and try to make somewhat of identification with that. It's difficult when you have always labored under the perception that you don't measure up, you're not as good or not as pretty or not as talented or not as gifted as someone else, without looking first at the fact that you have a uniqueness that stands out beyond anyone. And that uniqueness, even if you receive affirmations from others, and it was beautiful that this mother or aunt gave this little girl affirmations of how beautiful she was. But you know what the real miracle will be for that little girl? Will be when she can look in the mirror and affirm how beautiful she is to herself. That is the miracle. That's where the breakthrough takes place. That's where the healing is done. This is for those who are connected with the Christian faith. This is the season of Lent. This past Wednesday was Ash Wednesday, and the season of Lent, in a nutshell, is a time of self-reflection, a time to see what hindrances are present in your life that would damper the Spirit of God of really being able to manifest fully and freely through you. What unhealthy attachments are you holding on to? What unhealthy misconceptions and misperceptions and thoughts have you been holding on to that hinder that light within from shining through? It's so very important today, so very important in our society, and not just with the Black culture. Of course, the reason that I emphasize the Black culture is that it's my culture, number one. And number two, when I look at it sociologically as well as culturally, America hasn't always accentuated the beauty within Black people. When I look at some of the some earlier artists who, many of them went to Europe, many of them stayed in Europe, and some of them died in Europe because they were embraced, ironically, among the Europeans, where in America they had to face so much bigoted discrimination. That plays on the psyche because that gets passed down from one generation to the next. It's easy for some in other cultures who've never experienced this to say, well, that was then, you need to get over that. It's easy for someone to say, get over that, when they've never had that struggle. Even some within the Black community who've never felt themselves to be not good enough, not measuring up, not being a part of, and they've always been chosen first whenever there was a team that had to be picked. And it's easy to want to fit into a group or a club or an organization, sorority, fraternity, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as that individual knows his or her own worth and value, and don't allow any organization, any group, anyone to be the first and last to affirm who you are. In the 139th Psalm, verse 14, very powerful verse, the psalmist says, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. My simple question to you, whether if you are in the Christian faith or not, or whatever faith you have, if you follow Allah, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Buddhist and you follow the teachings of Buddha, Confucianism, you follow the teachings of Confucius, whatever faith you claim, or whatever, if you have no faith, if you don't even have a faith, when was the last time you looked in the mirror and affirmed something positive about who you are? You're not a mistake. You're not an oddity that is pushed aside and has no worth or value. And again, it is beautiful when someone can affirm you, when someone speaks well of you. That's awesome. But it's not necessary. And it shouldn't be a contingent of you defining who you are. In other words, if they never call your name, if certain individuals that you may look up to, if they never celebrate you or congratulate you, what's most important and where the real miracle takes place is when you celebrate, when you congratulate, and when you honor how fearfully and wonderfully created you are. It's so important. Now that there has been an increase in suicides, some related to the pandemic. I think the pandemic has uncorked some things that have been inside the minds and hearts of people, and that isolation and that sense of being alone has exacerbated certain behaviors that have led, unfortunately, to untimely deaths. No matter what culture you come from, no matter what group you belong to, no matter what ethnicity you are part of, I think every last one of us has endured some sense of questioning one's own self-worth or value. I know I have. And I know how important it is to accentuate who you were created to be by God, and to walk fully in your unique gifts, abilities, and talents. And again, it's awesome if somebody will, acknowledge you, point you out, celebrate you. But what's even more awesome is when you acknowledge yourself, when you celebrate you. So I don't know, again, to The family, I don't know if this video will ever get even to the family of this little girl. I very seriously doubt that it was a made up skit, because the little girl broke down and cried. And she said that when she was affirmed that she was beautiful after saying that she was ugly, she knew something on, and she was about maybe 5 or 6 years old. She knew something within her needed to change her inner dialogue and say, no, you're not ugly. You're not worthless. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. We will be back doing some more Back to Black classic film reviews and more spoken word and other things to try to inspire and uplift. But I hope that someone watching this will really and truly take a personal assessment of themselves. And again, it's great when we can affirm others, when we can uplift others. But always encourage those that you uplift and affirm to do it for themselves. Because people can share good things about you and to you all day long, but unless you internalize it, unless you embrace it, not in an arrogant way, not in a self-conceited way, but in a self-confident way, that you are bright, beautiful, and worthy to be respected, acknowledged, and accepted. Just remember, though, that acknowledgement and acceptance begins with you. This is Brother Ethel. Just something to think about from the Griot's Corner. I hope it finds you whole. And if you're not whole, I hope that you will go through whatever you need to go through to heal whatever's been broken in you, so that that brokenness doesn't bleed upon those who never cut you. I love you. Peace and blessings.